I love to be in control. I love for my kids to be doing what I want them to do. I love for my wife to be doing what I want her to do. I love for my money to be where it's supposed to be. And I love for my career to be going exactly as I want it to do. Because when everything's in control, I feel a sense of peace. But for many of us, when things get out of control, maybe we go to the doctors and we get that diagnosis, or one of our kids go off the rail, or we get an unexpected finance stuff, and we feel like we're not in control of our situation. That triggers panic, and it triggers fear, and it triggers worry. And today we're going to explore an insight that's a cure for our control issues. Because if our sense of peace is determined and dependent on everything going as we want it to go, of us being in control of people and situations, then it's a very fragile peace. You know, it's like a card tower that a single knock and it'll just collapse. Because sometimes, yeah, things go well and people do what we want them to do, and our money's as we want it to do, but that's not often. And when we get out of control and things are not as we want, that creates stress, it creates strain in our relationships. You know, if you've got a manager who's a microcontroller, or if you've got people in your family who are trying to control stuff, it creates problems with our relationships. So today we're going to dive into a story that's going to liberate us and set us free. Welcome to my channel. My name's Derek, and for the last 3 decades I've been helping people grow and develop their faith, and in this channel we look at lots of tools and insights that help you live a deeper and more meaningful life. So none of us like to feel out of control, and none of us like to feel the stress and anxiety that comes with that. So let's dive into this story, and it's a story about something that happened with Jesus, and you find it in Mark chapter 4 verse 36. And Jesus is with some of his followers, his disciples, and he decides that he wants to cross the lake in a boat, and they're fishermen, so he asks them to get a boat, and they travel across this lake that's about 7 miles across. So it take them maybe 2 hours to go across this lake, and he goes and has a nap while they steer the boat. And as they're heading across, a big storm comes up, and the waves blow, and the water starts coming into the boat, and the boat starts to sink. And so they do what we do when life gets out of control and things don't happen as we want. They freak out, and they start shouting, and they go and wake Jesus because he's sleeping. And Jesus gets up, and he sees the wind and the waves coming in. He sees the water, and the boat starts to sink. And he asks 2 questions. And the first question is a very odd question. He looks at his followers, his disciples, these fishermen, and he says to them, "Why are you afraid? Why are you afraid?" And like, there's water coming in the boat, and he's like, "Why are you afraid? You know, you've just got that cancer diagnosis." Jesus said, "Well, why are you afraid? You know, your kid's out of control. Maybe they're mid-teens and they're going off and doing stuff, and it's freaking you out." And Jesus said, "Why are you afraid? You know, maybe your job's under threat, you just lost your job and you don't know how you're going to pay the mortgage." And Jesus is like, "Why are you afraid?" And just like those disciples, we'd look and like, do you not get it? Do you not see what's happening to me? And then he says a second question, which is unlocks really the key for how you get peace, unlocks the key of how to conquer our control issues and what the alternative is. And this is his question. He says to his followers of Jesus in the boat, and he says this to them. He says, "Do you still have so little faith? Do you still have no faith?" And what he means by faith is a relaxed trust in God. He doesn't mean like your beliefs or what religion you put on a census. It's like, do you not have a deep trust in me? Are you not relaxed in your trust in me? And he says to them, "Do you still not trust me?" Because they've been with him for a while. They've been exploring him. They've seen what he's done. They've heard what he's taught. And he's saying, "Haven't seen all that. Do you still not have this relaxed sense of trust?" In a sense, what Jesus is saying is, do you not realize who I am? Because there's only a need to panic and freak out when things get out of control if nobody else is in control. Yeah, the only reason we freak and panic is if there's nobody else in control. And Jesus is saying to them, do you not see who's in control of all things? He's trying to encourage them to kind of look up and see that there's a God who has power. Because then what Jesus does is he speaks to the waves and the wind, and instantly he calms the storm, and instantly he brings peace, because he is the God who's in control of all things. Let me show you what he means, because essentially what Jesus is saying is the amount of anxiety we have is related to the lack of trust we have in God. That when our trust in God, that actually he's in control of all things, when that goes up, our anxiety goes down. But to the degree that we don't trust him, that is the degree, or we're just trying to run life on our own and there's nobody else to help us, is the degree to our fear and our anxiety goes up. And let me kind of illustrate this a little bit. Let's take this thin piece of paper. All right, this thin piece of paper. You can see how thin that is. One piece of paper. And let's imagine that that thin piece of paper represents the distance from the Earth to the sun. All right, you look out, maybe you can see the sun, how far that is. That's 96 million miles, I think. Let's represent it by that thin piece of paper. If you were to look at the night sky tonight and you were to find the nearest star to the Earth, and you represent that as paper, then you would need a stack of paper racked up 70 feet high that would represent the distance from the Earth to the nearest star. And if you were to think about the distance across our galaxy, like how wide that is, and you were to represent that in paper going up, the stack of paper would be 310 miles high. 310 miles high would represent how wide our galaxy is, if from us to the sun is that paper, that we just can't comprehend how big. And that's just our galaxy, and our galaxy is like a little tiny speck in the universe. And if God has created not just the Earth but the planets and the space and the universe, then God is even bigger than that. And Jesus is kind of saying, I get that the waves and the wind are significant to you, and he doesn't want to minimize that, and he doesn't want to minimize the struggles that you're going through. He doesn't want to minimize the stuff that's freaking you out, but he does want to maximize your sense of God. And he's saying to the disciples in the boat, I don't want to minimize those waves, but I don't want to maximize your sense of who God, and the God who created the planets and the universe, and it's just like so big, is the God who can speak into your situation. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we control God and he's going to snap his fingers and fix your situation. Sometimes what it means is he'll sustain you through your situation. Sometimes he will intervene and he'll do miracles. It's happened in my life. Sometimes he just fixes stuff and it blows my mind. At other times he's just sustained me, and in years, decades later, I look back and think, I was just hanging on, but yeah, God sustained me through it. You see, the cure for fear is faith, to trust that somebody else has got it under control even when you can't. The trust for anxiety is faith, that there's somebody who's got all under control. That the cure for stress is faith, trusting that somebody has got it all under control. And I want to encourage you just to ponder that today, to imagine you're in the boat and your circumstances that are out of your control, that you're freaking out, and you're saying to Jesus and what's going on, and he's saying to you, why are you afraid? Have you got so little faith? Do you not realize that there's a God of the universe, a God who's over all things, and to realize that he's there with you, and to maybe just meditate on that and to let that just shape your perspective. Because when you maximize your view of God, actually what happens is, even if your circumstances don't change, that you worry less and you fear less as you trust more. Hope that insight was helpful and that story will feed your faith today. If you want to get more useful content, then click the subscribe and the notification, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.